In a land far, far away, there was a monster living in the middle of the desert. Moreover, he was only fed with fresh soil, newly greened plants and seeds. A little far from the desert, there was a kingdom he had not yet discovered and had not gone and eaten its soil. The king and the queen of this kingdom did not have children, and they were very sad because of this. When the queen couldn't sleep one night, she sneaked out of the palace. She wandered around the desert. Although the desert monster noticed her, he did not go near her and did not harm her, because all he wanted was to eat all the plants and fresh soil in the world. At that moment, a star fell in the sky and left a green trail behind it. Seeing the falling star, the queen immediately made a wish. "Oh, I wish I had a daughter so I could hug her and raise her with love." At that moment, a star fairy appeared in front of the queen. "Oh, you are a fairy! I cannot believe my eyes!" "Yes, dear queen, I heard your wish and came to your presence. If you want to have a child, wander through this desert for 7 days and nights. The magic of the stars will surprise you." The queen did indeed wander through the desert for 7 days and nights, listening to the words of the star fairy. The king, on the other hand, thought that the queen, who had not returned to the palace for days, was lost, and he was devastated. At the end of her 7th day in the desert, just as she was in despair, the queen heard a cry. The queen moved toward the direction the voice came from. She saw a tiny baby crying on the sand. She immediately took her in her arms and returned to the palace. The king was very happy when he saw the queen safe and sound days later, and the cute baby she was carrying in her arms increased his happiness even more. They named that little baby the Earth Princess. Years passed. The Earth Princess grew up and became a very beautiful girl. Her favorite thing since she was a baby was playing with sand. If she drew a butterfly in the sand, the butterflies turned into reality and flew around her. Or if she drew a flower, it turned into a real flower and smelled amazing. The only person who realized that the Earth Princess had a magical power was her father, the king. But he didn't tell anyone about her power so that no harm would come to her. One day, when the people were planting new crops, the nose of the desert monster caught a sharp smell. He soon realized it was the smell of fresh soil. When he thought of the delicious saplings and seeds he would eat, he could not resist and quickly started to move towards the direction of the smell. Meanwhile, the people in the kingdom noticed that the ground was starting to shake. Oh! What's going on? Is this an earthquake?
This is something else!
Noticing the ground shaking, the king and the queen also rushed out of the palace balcony and saw the desert monster far away under the ground moving towards the kingdom.
Oh no! I thought he was a myth!
This is very bad! The myth is becoming true! The king immediately ordered his soldiers to stop the desert monster. The soldiers took cover at the gates of the kingdom. But the desert monster was so big and scary that many of the soldiers thought they could not defeat him. When the desert monster approached to the kingdom, he caught the soldiers one by one and threw them in the desert.
No! Help! Help! No! My soldiers! Our land!
Seeing this, the people stopped cultivating the land and began to flee to save their lives. The monster continued to eat every sapling, every fresh greenery he saw. While the people did not know what to do out of sadness and fear, the king came out of his palace with all his might. The Earth Princess followed him too.
My princess, my beautiful daughter, stay in the palace with your mother. I don't want him to hurt you.
No, Daddy. You know I can beat him. I can save our kingdom, our land. The king did not want his only daughter, the Earth Princess, to come face to face with the desert monster. So he left her behind, took up his sword, and rushed towards the monster that was eating the fertile land. He tried to stop him, but failed. Just as the desert monster was about to grab the king and throw him into the desert, the Earth Princess could not stand it any longer and drew a shield on the sand. This shield has been magically made real. The Earth Princess protected herself with that shield and ran towards the desert monster. Even though the desert monster threw sand at the princess, he couldn't stop her. The Earth Princess immediately bent down and drew a large bucket in the sand. The bucket was made real. With her magical power, the princess lifted this bucket and threw it at the desert monster. The bucket got on the desert monster's head and got stuck there. Thus, the monster could not see ahead and he could no longer eat the fertile land. At that time, the Earth Princess gathered all her attention and created a desert tornado to drive the monster away from the kingdom. This tornado was so big and strong that it engulfed the monster in an instant and carried him far from the kingdom. The people who watched what was happening were both in great astonishment and happiness. The Earth Princess was exhausted from the magic she used. Father King immediately ran to her and hugged her.
You saved our lives, our land, our kingdom.
Long live Earth Princess!
From that day on, the Earth Princess protected all the lands of the kingdom with her courage forever. Because without soil, there would be no life, and the Earth Princess knew it best.
Rapunzel and the Princesses
This is ridiculous. I quit.
versus the Witches. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, on a night when wish lanterns adorned the sky, Rapunzel, Cinderella, the mermaid Aria, and Snow White were all under the ocean lighthouse. Each princess made a wish to make the world better, and the sun rose again. Rapunzel's tiny friend Clapsy woke up before all of the princesses set off to the magical forest to pick sweet cherries. The cherries were such a gorgeous red and so shiny that she couldn't help herself and ate a whole basket.
So delicious!
Then Clapsy noticed a baby deer passing through the trees. The deer had a hurt foot.
Hello, baby deer! What happened to you? Come with me. I know someone who can make you feel better.
Clapsy turned around and started to move forward when something about the baby deer changed. Its eyes turned glowing red, but Clapsy didn't notice the terrifying change and brought the deer to Snow White. Snow White had a magical power to heal animals. When Snow White approached the baby deer to heal its leg, the innocent-looking deer instantly transformed into the evil Queen Hela. When Snow White saw Hela, she was very frightened.
Hela, how did you find me here?
Hela waved her arms magically, and the ground beneath the princess split open, and Snow White fell into the depths of the chasm.
You will rot and grow ugly, Snow White. No one in this world can be as beautiful as I.
Snow White fell straight down into a tunnel and was imprisoned in a dungeon. But up above, the other princesses noticed Snow White's disappearance, and they all set out in search of her.
Snow White! Where are you?
Cinderella was walking in the area where Snow White went missing. She had taken a few steps more when...
Ah!
She fell into the dungeon too. Then the mermaid Aria was sent a seashell by the waves crashing on the shore, and listened to it.
What? They took them underground?
The mermaid Aria gave the seashell back to the waves and immediately went to the magic forest. At the same time, Rapunzel and Clapsy had reached the spot where Snow White had disappeared.
Snow White! Where are you?
Where did you go?
Rapunzel! Look! The last time I saw her, she was right here.
And with those words, the ground split again. And just as Rapunzel was about to fall in, Aria, who was racing towards her, realized what was happening and used her arms to force Rapunzel out of the way. Rapunzel hung in a bubble of air and touched back on land. When Aria reached Rapunzel's side, the chasm in the ground was still open, and voices were coming from in it.
Help! Save us!
We can't get out of here. Upon hearing the princess's voices, Rapunzel let down her hair into the pit to help them. Clinging to her hair, Aria lowered herself down.
We're coming! Don't worry!
Aria, look out! When Aria turned around to look, there she saw Vega and Hela.
Vega! How are you even here?
Apparently you've forgotten my powers, Aria. When Aria least expected it, Vega began to shoot ink from her octopus arms at her. Aria generated a shield around her to protect herself. At the same time, above ground, Rapunzel's baby dragon Drado had eaten so many dragon fruits that he turned into a huge dragon. Seeing this, Rapunzel understood that Drado had gained a lot of power. Drado, help us! Drado stomped his feet on the ground so hard that... What's going on? It's going to cave in on us! Ah! We'll be trapped down here! Realizing this was her chance, Aria used all her strength and pulled open the dungeon bars and got Snow White and Cinderella out of the tunnel. But of course, once topside, the princesses weren't out of the woods yet. In fact, they were right in the middle of the woods. Xenia and Camilla were standing right in front of the princesses.
Broom, sweep, 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 a rock monster to make. Beating these princesses will be a piece of cake.
Camilla's magical broomstick, Broomy, swept up chunks of rock and placed them in front of Camilla. When there were enough rocks, Xenia used her powerful magic to create a giant stone man. The stone man stepped towards the princesses to hurt them. Rapunzel stretched her hair out like a rope and tied together the legs of the stone man. But while the stone man may have fallen, he was not beat. He got back up and began to run. I can't stop him! Mermaid Arya tried to use her power to the stone man in the air and sent him in another direction. But she couldn't.
He's too heavy! I can't lift him!
Next up was Cinderella, who began to call on the aid of all the animals in the forest. Hear me, beasts of the forest! The stone man was just steps away and about to hurt them when, up in the sky, the dragon Drado showed his might. Drado heaved a breath of fire at the stone man. The stone man lost his balance, crashed to the ground, but wasn't injured. When the dragon once again began to blast him with fire, the stone man tore off a piece of his arm and threw it at the dragon. The mermaid Arya took control of the rock chunk and stopped it from hitting the dragon. Drado was enraged by this and snatched the stone man in his claws, flying to the end of a cliff. And he let him go. Falling from a great height, the stone man was smashed into pieces. The dragon Drado could be seen in the hills. The witches were so scared of the power of the princesses and dragon that they immediately turned and ran away.
You can't defeat us when we stick together, witches. We got animals and a dragon and superpowers. But just a little love could have fixed everything.
Then all of the princesses climbed onto Drado's back and flew to the ocean lighthouse. Good had once again triumphed over evil. But what really matters is teaching goodness to evil hearts.